When we read a novel, comic, or watch a movie or anime, the first thing that usually sticks in our mind is the protagonist, the main character. But that rule doesn't apply when you read 20th Century Boys. Because in this story, the one who lingers isn't the hero, it's the villain, the most iconic, mysterious, and unpredictable figure of them all. A man who can't fly, can't vanish, can't kill with superpowers, only words, ideas, and manipulation. Yet somehow, he becomes the most influential person in the entire story. That's what makes Friend, or Tomodachi, terrifying. He's not just a villain, he's a movement, a belief system. And it makes us ask, what makes people trust and even worship him? How did this masked man become president of the world? Tomodachi is the central antagonist of 20th Century Boys. He pulls the strings behind everything: politics, cults, chaos, all while hiding behind the mask of a savior. He's the leader of an unnamed religious sect, the mastermind of Japan's Democratic Friendship Party, and the most shadowy figure in the entire story. One of the things that makes Friend such an iconic character is how well his identity is hidden. For most of the manga, we don't know who he is. All we have are clues pointing back to Kenji's childhood friends, and that mystery creates constant tension. Both the characters and the readers are trapped in the same question. Who is Friend? Tomodachi's grand plan is something straight out of a nightmare. He wants to end humanity using an old childhood fantasy, the Prophecy Book, a story created by Kenji and his friends when they were kids. He takes that childish imagination and turns it into mass murder. Friend first appears in Chapter 1, floating in front of his followers, and right from that moment, you can tell this guy is going to be big. He has no powers, but he has something much more dangerous: charisma. He appears in moments when society feels lost, hopeless, afraid. He promises hope. He becomes that voice that says, "Follow me, I'll fix it." And in times like that, people want to believe. But behind that, he creates the fear first, then sells the cure. When a giant robot spreads a deadly virus, Friend swoops in as the hero who defeats it. He brings the antidote, the one he made himself. He builds the fire, then poses as the firefighter. He doesn't just manipulate people, he studies them. He fills the emptiness in their hearts with promises that they're chosen, that they'll survive the apocalypse, that they're fighting for something holy, and that's how he wins them. The mystery around Friend's identity isn't just for show, it's the foundation of his power. That mask doesn't just hide his face, it creates an aura of divinity. People start to wonder who he really is, and in that curiosity, they get pulled deeper into his world. But what makes Friend truly terrifying isn't his secret identity, it's his ability to control people. His words aren't just speeches, they're weapons. He talks about hope, about a better world, about saving humanity. But every promise is bait, every sermon is manipulation. Friend's charisma builds a strong emotional bond with his followers. They don't just obey him, they worship him. He directs them like pieces on a chessboard, and they move without question. A once divided society becomes united under his symbol, under his lies. If there's one thing that defines Friend, it's manipulation. Every move he makes feels confusing at first, but later it always turns out to be part of something bigger. He shapes situations like clay, controlling what people see and believe. He even fools the entire world into thinking he's a hero. At one point, he tricks Kenji and his friends into believing that Sadakiyo is the real Friend. Then, he stages his own death, falling from a building alongside Fukube, one of Kenji's classmates, who actually turns out to be Friend himself. It's genius. He removes suspicion from himself while deepening the mystery. Even before his supposed death, Fukube throws everyone off by saying that the person behind the mask isn't Sadakiyo, but someone else. That one line throws the whole story into chaos, blurring Friend's identity even more. Evil mixes with confusion, and the mystery thickens like fog. Fukube uses that fog to protect himself, to keep the myth of Friend alive, and the most dangerous part is, he knows Kenji too well. He predicts every move, every decision, as if reading his mind. When Kenji tries to approach Rina, the daughter of Professor Shikishima, to gather information, Friend is already ahead of him. Rina herself is a trap, a way for Friend to monitor everything Kenji does. Even writes new prophecies that predict real-world events as if he can see the future, but they're not prophecies. They're traps disguised as destiny. Like when he predicts that the Holy Mother will descend to Earth, which is really just him anticipating Kiriko's actions as she works to create a vaccine for his virus. Every time someone tries to stop him, it only ends up proving him right. Even when Kana rises up to oppose him, he twists the situation so that it fits his narrative. If something goes wrong, he adjusts. If something goes right, he takes credit. In the end, no matter how the events unfold, he always wins the story. That's how Friend operates. He's not a prophet, he's a puppeteer, a man who studies human behavior so deeply that it looks like prediction. He doesn't read the future, he reads people. Friend doesn't just control people with words, he controls them through the world they live in. He knows that if you repeat something long enough, people will start to believe it. So, he brands Kenji and his friends as terrorists. He floods the media with lies, broadcasts fear on TV, and spreads his story in schools. Kids grow up hearing that Kenji is the devil. Adults see it on the news every day. Eventually, the truth doesn't matter anymore. When you hear the same lie over and over, it starts to sound familiar, and familiarity feels like truth. That's how Friend turned society into his stage. He even publishes the new prophecy book, a rewritten version of Kenji's childhood story, and it becomes more popular than the Bible. A book designed to brainwash, to keep his ideology alive in every home. People see it, read it, share it until it becomes something sacred. And it works. Even the church trembles. Pastor Luciano, one of the few who understands the danger, is terrified of what that book will do. Because this isn't faith anymore, it's psychological warfare. Then comes his greatest trick, the resurrection. Friend designs a plan that shocks the entire world. He stages his death, then returns like a miracle. He saves the Pope from an assassination attempt and turns himself into a living legend. By dying and coming back to life, he doesn't just become a hero, he becomes holy. This is the turning point. He's no longer just a cult leader, he's a savior, a man reborn, equal to God in the eyes of his followers. The symbolism is clear. His resurrection mirrors the story of Jesus, a deliberate imitation meant to seal his power forever, and it works so well that it leads him to become the president of the world. But the eerie part is, the friend who comes back might not even be Fukube, because in chapter 133, Dr. Yamane shoots Fukube dead, and both Ocho and Manjume confirm it. So if Fukube really died, then who came back? Who is this resurrected friend everyone worships? That's the brilliance of it. Even in death, the illusion continues. The man behind the mask changes, but the belief stays alive. Even after his so-called resurrection, Friend's deception doesn't stop. Behind the holy image hides a man who lies, manipulates, and kills under the mask of purification. He doesn't rule through strength, but through control, propaganda, fear, and blind faith. He rarely gets his own hands dirty. When someone becomes a problem, he makes others do it. Like when he orders the assassin to kill Kiriko's boyfriend. Then, when Kiriko is grieving, he appears to comfort her, a fake savior offering peace he doesn't mean. That's Friend's pattern. He destroys, then pretends to heal. He's the poison and the antidote. Even his so-called world-destroying robot is part of the game. It's not some terrifying war machine. It's a pile of balloons, rags, and fake noise. Maybe it's a limitation. Maybe it's mockery. Either way, it shows how skilled he is at manipulating emotion. He doesn't need real power, just the illusion of it. And that illusion keeps people following him. Even when everything looks fake, his followers still believe. By the time Friend's influence reaches its peak, his face still looks untouched by age. Even after 50 years, he still has that childlike, blank expression. No emotion, no depth, like time itself refuses to leave a mark on him. It's unsettling. It makes him feel less human, more like something unnatural. And that's the truth about Friend. Beneath the mask, he's not a god. He's a child who never grew up. Fukube, the first friend, was Kenji's childhood rival. He formed a group with Sadakio, Yamane, and Katsumata after sneaking into Kenji's secret base and reading the prophecy book. That's where it all began. A childish fantasy turned into a new book, the new prophecy, which they swore was better. When he grew up, Fukube became obsessed with miracles and recognition. He wanted attention, not truth. Even his so-called miracles were just tricks, floating acts, fake spoon bending, lies wrapped in performance. When one of his stunts was exposed as fake, the humiliation broke him. Instead of accepting failure, he blamed everyone else. He needed to feel powerful, so he decided to destroy everything that made him feel small. It's exactly what Mark Manson described as the childish mentality, chasing pleasure and validation instead of facing pain or growth. Friend is that child. A kid who never stopped playing, only now the game is the world itself. He builds chaos the same way a kid builds a sandcastle just to kick it down when he's bored. Even his anger comes from childish jealousy. When he feels ignored or outshined, he lashes out. When no one noticed his miracles or cared about his stories, he turned his pain into revenge. Everything he does, the cult, the prophecies, the destruction, all comes from that same hunger for recognition. Friend just wants to be seen. After Fukubei's death, the mask doesn't fall, it's passed on. Katsumata becomes the new friend. You can tell the difference in their masks. Fukubei wore a Hattori ninja mask while Katsumata used one with Kenji's childhood symbol, the one that haunted everyone's memories. Kiriko even says it herself. The man who returned, the one everyone called friend, wouldn't hurt his own daughter, Kana. That's because the new friend wasn't Fukubei at all, it was Katsumata. Katsumata's story is filled with resentment, bullied, humiliated, and blamed for something Kenji did when they were kids. That moment, when Kenji stole a candy store prize and Katsumata took the blame, was the seed of his hatred for humanity. He grew up masked, unseen, and forgotten. Unlike Fukubei, who faked power to feel important, Katsumata actually believed the world didn't deserve to exist. To him, destroying everything was liberation. He even said it himself. I am important, the world is not. In his world, there's no good or evil, just him and the game he plays. Even when Kenji finally apologizes, Katsumata refuses to forgive, because forgiveness would end the story, and he doesn't want it to end. He dies when number 13 crashes a flying saucer into him, but even that ending feels uncertain, like another illusion. Later versions, like 21st Century Boy's Perfect Edition, go further, suggesting Fukubei might have died as a child, and that Katsumata had been pretending to be him from the start, meaning the entire friend cult was built on one man's stolen identity. Whether it's Fukubei or Katsumata, it doesn't really matter. Friend is an idea, not a person, a mask that survives whoever wears it, a god built out of lies. And like every lie, it eventually collapses. When the truth begins to surface, his followers start questioning everything. The faith that once united them turns into doubt. Friend loses control, and the empire he built with words begins to crumble. In the end, even his closest ally, Dr. Yamane, the man who once believed in him completely, pulls the trigger and ends his life. That's how it all ends. Not with a grand battle, not with power, but with the quiet truth that every illusion breaks and no mask lasts forever. And when it's over, what's left isn't just a story about good and evil. It's a warning. 20th Century Boys shows how easy it is to follow someone who tells us what we want to hear. Tomodachi didn't use force. He used belief. He turned loneliness into loyalty and lies into faith. That's why he's unforgettable. He's not the kind of villain you hate. He's the kind that feels too real. The one that makes you wonder how many people in the real world could do the same thing if they just wore the right mask. Maybe that's why we remember him more than Kenji, because heroes inspire us. But villains like Tomodachi, they expose us. So what do you think? Was Tomodachi a genius, a monster, or just a lonely kid who never grew up? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you made it this far, you're officially part of the mystery. So hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next dive. Thank you for watching. Seriously.